Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of Fernie City Council held at 6:31 p.m. on January 28th, 2025. Kisu Kukit. We acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleat First Nation. We recognize that we live and work in their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakutat Nucleat and are members of the Tanaha-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I'll now call this meeting to order, and I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the following staff recommendation: that the agenda of the January 28th, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I'll now ask for a mover and a seconder for this staff recommendation that the minutes of the January 14th, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I'll now open the floor to public participation and invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with sections 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the issuance of the permit, and a speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. And I'll look first to our gallery to see if anybody indicates an interest to speak, and seeing none, I'll ask Ms. Chown if there's anybody online. And seeing none, we'll move on then to item 11.1, the proposed plow truck purchase report from our Manager of Public Works.
Hello, thanks for having me tonight. I'm here to talk about the front plow purchase for this year. The request is that council approve the purchase of a single axle front plow truck for the price of $447,167.48 from Commercial Truck Equipment. So how did we get here? In 2024, our snow committee undertook a review of the overall service area for winter operations, and the operational decision was made to manage West Fernie with our city forces versus contracting it out. We were contracting it out for 2 years. At that time, Grader 208 was also slated to be replaced, and we received a quote to retrofit an existing truck that we had, and that quote that was solicited was for $190,000. We prepared a request for proposal and a request for proposal for that retrofit of the existing truck to try and save cost, but the result came back to well over what we had expected. Then we tried to sole source and negotiate with somebody locally, and the best price we could get was $293,000 to retrofit that truck. We also then decided to continue with the brine project. So we retrofitted that 3-ton truck with an existing water tank, and we are currently getting our brine tank put into place. So some budgetary considerations. The reason I'm in front of you today is according to our purchasing and tendering policy, any purchases over 100,000 have to come to council. And just wanted to fill you in on the whole process from 2024 to now. So we did budget $550,000 to replace the grader. And this is the price that we got for the end of 2024. They would be ready to start building this truck this year, and $6,000 of that budget has been committed to supply and install the brine tank in the yards. So because this is under budget, excess funds will be placed back into the fleet reserve to complement our future fleet purchases. Some implications to think about and things that we discussed prior to bringing this to council was operator training and competency. So operating a grader takes a lot more skill and a higher degree of training than it does to operate a front plow truck. The single axle truck that I'm proposing we purchase lowers the training barrier to the staff and our training costs, as well as this piece of equipment can move faster and it is more agile. It has a better turning radius, so that will help with the tight corners in West Fernie and the cul-de-sacs in there. Training is also expensive, so one grader course for one employee is $3,000. And it's not offered to all employees, whereas with this front plow truck, our minimum requirements for hiring is having a class 3 with air brakes, and the newer operators will be able to operate this piece of equipment. So there's more versatility in managing where the staff go as well. Just some notes from the last time I presented about this winter operation change. Using brine as a preemptive winter solution is what we're also looking to implement. So this is already somewhat underway. The pre-wetting the streets is something that we'll do before a snowstorm comes or before freezing rain comes, and that will help reduce the bond of the ice to the pavement. So that'll help our plows pick up the ice and snow after the storms come. This is the only preemptive snow and ice operations that can be implemented in North America. We do anticipate that there will be a reduced effort towards spring sweeping once we have this program underway. And there are studies in the American Public Works Association that they posted that there's up to 75% reduce in rock salt use. So we are hoping with that preemptive solution that our purchasing salt for the winter will go down. So there's 3 options here. Option 1, which is my recommendation, is that council approve the purchase of this new plow truck. Option 2 is that council approve the retrofit of the 3-ton truck for $293,000. And then option 3 is for council to direct me and my colleagues otherwise. So with that, I will leave it to any questions.
Questions from council? Yeah, Councilor Ida Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Manager, if we were to say go for the retrofit option, can you give us like the sort of the pros and cons? And because it's already an existing item that we have, what would be the lifespan of it versus like buying new? And will it be able to do all the things that the brand new option would?
Through the mayor to Councilor Ida Kelly. This truck that we have is I would have to check my fleet data, but I think it would probably last maybe 3 to 5 years. And when I had presented to council last year, the plan was to try the pre-wet with this front plow to see if it's an option that the city of Fernie likes, that we like as operators. I wouldn't have that as a standalone replacement. It was more of a trial to see if this is the option that we like, or something that's useful for this city. It wouldn't be exactly the same as what you're looking to purchase. This would be a lighter truck and a smaller truck, so a smaller plow, and it wouldn't be committed to just, right now that truck is committed to just brining streets, but if we were to retrofit this truck, it would have a sander on the back, so we wouldn't have one truck fully just committed to brining. It would be brining, sanding, and plowing. So the truck we are purchasing will be brining, sanding, and plowing, but it's a bigger piece of equipment and brand new. So there's a lot that goes into retrofitting a truck, and that would mean, taking this to Sparwood and a lot of outfitting and yeah, it's a big job for a smaller community shop to do. They can do it, but that's why it's not my recommended option, because it would only be a 3 to 5 year kind of solution.
Councillor Roundas?
Thanks, Your Worship. First of all, I had difficulty understanding the report itself. Like, there was some parts of the memo that was very hard for me to understand, but glad to see the presentation. It made it a little more clear to me. But I would have still recommended CAO if we had a lifetime cost on all the three options in front of us. My initial question is like, can you run the grader for, I know it was due to be retired in 2024. Could you still run it for some more years? Was that question answered?
Sorry, I think it was in the report that it can run another 2 to 3 years with only minor repairs, as I understood.
So to answer, Mayor, your question, our mechanic is confident that it can run for another 2 years. That was in the presentation from 2024. So I would like to retire that piece of equipment in 2025. That still leaves us needing to replace that grader. So whether it's with another grader or this front plow truck, if we were to go forward with another grader, we would likely be spending that $550 and more. Looking at quotes from 2024, a new grader was around $540.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just following on that cost to replace with a grader versus cost to replace with the truck that's in the report, what is the life cycle of either of those pieces of machinery? Do they have similar lifespans, life expectancies, or would the grader being, I'm assuming, a heavier duty piece of material of machinery, have a longer lifespan or lighter, lower?
So based on the fleet replacement plan that was prepared, I believe it was 2023, we are life cycling all heavy duty equipment at 12 years. Generally, most fleet management or asset management look at the hours, not the years. And if we were looking at the hours, it would be a very similar case, that you don't want a grader or any heavy duty equipment that's running, 6 months every day, because we are we're a 7 day a week operation, and we start at 4 a.m. and the team is done at midnight. So that's a lot of hours going into these equipment, and my recommendation would be to not go outside of that fleet replacement plan and continue to keep our fleet up to date with that heavy duty mark being 12 years.
Further?
Well, I guess more just as a point of clarification. So both of these machines would be considered heavy duty. Thank you.
Councillor McIsaac and then Councillor Ramadas.
I apologize because I think I'm jumping ahead a little bit here at the same time, but I want to ask because it wasn't mentioned about the retrofit for 315 grader. And so what I'm wondering is if we purchase the new plow truck and retrofit the other grader, are we at the same level or an increased level of capability for plowing?
That's a great question. Thank you. 315 is a 3-ton truck. It's not a grader, so it's a glorified pickup truck with a dump body, is in layman's terms, and that's what we've retrofitted with the water tank on the back that we will be using to brine the roads.
Further?
Thank you. Okay, so I apologize because I'm not sure if I realized that when I was reading that 315 was also a plow truck. So this would effectively, as I understand it, remove one of the graders from operation, period. Now, graders and plow trucks do different jobs. So what's the overall impact on our ability to plow the streets in a timely fashion? What's the change from having a grader versus, I get the nimbleness, I get the, some of the tighter sections in West Fernie, but we have lots of other areas too. And I'm just wondering what the overall impact.
Thank you. That's also a great question. Our impact, we anticipate our impact to be low. We have loader wings that we use that we anticipate this piece of equipment will be doing just as good as those pieces of equipment. We currently have 3 graders, so we'll still have 2. And the major difference is that with a front plow truck, you can put down pressure on the front plow, so it can move the snow. It just can't scrape down to pavement. So that's the major difference that we see as far as quality of snow removal. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, so not having the capability to do downward pressure, does that mean that with events like we had earlier this winter, where we had a bunch of snow followed by warming and we got all this thick undulating ice all over the place, is that typically better managed with a grader than with a plow truck? And are we potentially compromising our ability to deal with that?
I would say no for 2 reasons. So one, having the ability to pre-wet the streets, we do anticipate that pulling that ice off the roads will be a lot more manageable. Main Roads uses that method continuously, like that's part of their ongoing operations. And many municipalities across North America have used pre-wet systems and have seen very satisfactory results. 2 is the graders aren't that nimble, so getting lots of snow off the roads fast they're slower. They're really great for scraping ice and cleaning up boulevards afterwards and opening up roads to be wider, but they're not great at moving large amounts of snow. So I'm anticipating that this will help us meet our requirements within the snow removal policy faster, and then our graders can go out like they have been and widening the areas that we need.
Thank you.
Councillor Ramadas?
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't think I can add any more. Councillor McIsaac covered pretty much everything that I wanted to ask from a capability perspective. Part of me still wants to understand the lifetime costs on this, if you know what I mean. Like the option 3 is better, more capable, and in combination with grader, I realize that the capability is better. I appreciate that, but you're still paying $200,000 extra, right? Compared to option 2. Right, so I just want to understand, like, if you're running this asset for another 20 years, right? Are you still better off using option 3 and a combo of option 1 versus option 2?
Mr. Boranowski?
I might ask for a bit of clarification on which options you mean, because my understanding presently is we have option number one being recommended, which is the purchase of a new vehicle. Option two is retrofitting an existing vehicle that has a limited number of years left on its life cycle. And option three would be, instead of purchasing one of these single axle vehicles, would be looking back at the old plan before we were looking at a more nimble unit and replacing a grader with a grader. Is that correct?
Yeah, please.
Your Worship. Sorry, I messed up the options there, but all I'm saying is you got a grader that's due for replacement. And now you got another unit that you want to purchase new, albeit a little more expensive than the retrofit option, correct? Now, what I wanted to know is this retrofit option, however less capable it is still cheaper, right? And it'll last for however many years. And then you got this new unit that will probably last longer than the retrofit option, but it is more expensive. So all I want to know is, over an entire period of these assets, which one is going to be more economical? Like, because the $200,000 is still a meaningful delta between those two options. And I appreciate that, capability wise, you will be better off going for the option that you are recommending. I completely get it, but just want to understand, like, what's the cost implication over the life cycle of the asset?
If I can, with the retrofit being to a vehicle that has 2 to 3 years left in its lifespan versus a new vehicle that has approximately 12 in its projected full lifespan. Okay. I think we would likely have to sit down for a little bit and map that out for you to provide that.
Mr. Eisler, did you want to speak to that while you're up there?
Yeah, just briefly, we're comparing, the truck that we would be retrofitting is nearly aging out on us. So kind of repeating what we said. However, the heavy duty replacement in the fleet replacement plan is 15 years. So purchasing a new truck, we would get roughly 15 years out of that. Going to retrofit a truck that's, within 3 years, arguably possibly already aged out, you're only going to get three more years, and then you'd have to put that tank onto a new 3-ton truck, which would be in the ballpark of 200 and change thousand at least, again, without doing any research on that truck. So essentially we can buy, the new truck now and have a used truck that can solely brine and have 2 fast moving pieces of equipment. Or we can go and retrofit the old truck. But then, 3 years from now, we're going to be looking at buying a replacement truck for that skid to go into.
Councillor Adia Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. So I wanted to ask about the effect of man hours. If we go for this new, more nimble truck, do we think that that's going to reduce our man hours, or are we going to come out roughly the same because now we're going to be brining, which we weren't doing before? So could we talk about the overall effect of the man hours on the different options?
Logistically speaking, once the grader is retired, it's replacing one for the other, with less of a limit of operators operating that piece of equipment. So we got 3 levels of operators. Operator 1, that's the base level. Operator 2, those people know how to operate and are competent on higher piece of equipment. Excuse me. And then operator 3, and those are the grader operators. And right now we've only got 3 people competent. Yeah, 3 competent operators in our streets department on that piece of equipment. We do have people training for that, but what we're seeing is we've hired 3 seasonal staff this year to help with that personnel increase, and that increase is because of West Fernie. So we do anticipate that there'll be more ability for us to move move employees around onto different pieces of equipment because the limit of what they need to be trained on is lower. As far as hours, like particularly how many hours we anticipating adding or taking away, we don't have any ask for, you know, more salary in the streets department. So we plan to be, you know, using people where we need them when those pieces of equipment are in place.
Further?
Yes, thanks, your worship. So do the operator 1, 2, and 3 categories, are there different wage rates for those folks?
Yes.
Counselor Schussman.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. So kind of a bit tangential, but like, so currently with our current fleet of 3 graders, how much uptime do they have? Like, are they all running all the time, or are they generally parked?
I'm gonna give you the typical answer. That depends on the weather. If it's a full plow, all 3 of them are out. And we generally have throughout the entire year or throughout the entire winter, we're operating one pretty much all hours, hauling snow, pulling shoulders in to haul the snow when it's been like this and cold. There's, I would say, 1 grader operating all the time at all of our staffed hours. And the other 2, it kind of depends on the weather, really.
Further?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, to clarify, is there a bunch of time when we have the iron available, but not the operators? Like, we'd want to run them, but they're just sitting there?
We did run into that challenge last year. This year we have some people training, so we haven't run into that. And there's really lots of people are pining at getting hours on that piece of equipment. So anytime there is available hours on any 3 of those pieces, they're out. And to a point where, you know, we have people kind of fighting over who gets to drive the big machine. They want to be trained, you know, they want to be competent. And last year it just wasn't feasible for us to get people in the training course. And this year we had 3 new people getting trained. So they're very eager and they're out there when they can be.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, they're a lot of fun to run.
Mr. Burdett, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. I'd like to, just add some context to Councillor Ramadas's question earlier with some math. And I apologize, this should have been in the report, but I don't have any excuses. But so the options are to spend 447 now or 293 now, plus another 200 3 or 4 years from now. So the present value of 200 3 or 4 years from now using current rates is about 175. So the ending cost 3 years from now would be 468 or 447 today. And then both of those options would last the 15 years in total. So option 1 is slightly cheaper and a little more beneficial, as Ms. Selinger said. So we did do that math when we were preparing this, but and that's why we suggested option 1. Not to mention that the 200 grand 3 or 4 years from now may not actually be 200 grand 3 or 4 years from now. Yeah, there's some unknowns there. Thank you.
Counselor Nixon?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I like option 1. I like the staff recommendation. I think if we're trying to retrofit a 3-ton truck that has 3 years worth of life into it for 293, it's just a waste of money. It's like putting a Band-Aid on something. So I would, I'm all in for option number 1.
Thank you. Manager Salinger, just I want to get the timeline clear in my head. So we were going to retrofit the 3-ton truck, and we looked at the cost and the life cycle cost, given it's close to end of life. We chose not to do that. So we looked at a new truck. It's a 3-ton. Is it a larger, heavier 3-ton truck? Like or is it a different truck altogether?
It's a different truck altogether.
Okay.
So the 3-ton is what we have in the yard. It's not really used much in the winter time. The truck that we're looking to purchase is a single axle truck, so it's much heavier
Okay.
duty, and we're actually looking at the gear ratio so it can run everything properly and, you know, really have some power behind it.
And when you say everything like PTOs and all that stuff, okay, thank you. So, so we will potentially have a new truck. The old truck will be retrofitted with the brine tank. And the grader will still be available to us for 2 to 3 years, is that correct?
Correct, except it will probably only be 1 to 2 years now
Okay.
because we're almost at the end of this year, season-wise.
Fair. But it potentially will see less duty, so maybe get
Maybe.
extend its use a little bit.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We don't
Um,
plan, sorry.
No, please finish your thought.
Oh, we don't plan to retire that, that grader until the costs exceed what we could get in an auction for it. So
Right.
I think when I presented to council last year, our mark was around 10,000. So if the maintenance costs are yearly are above that, then we will be retiring that piece of equipment.
Okay. And in all this planning, we're confident the front plow truck is the tool for the job in West Fernie. And I asked that question because I trust we didn't go down a path because we had a front plow truck in mind. And then we're continuing down that path because that was the path we're on. Are we confident that that's the right piece of equipment for the job?
Yes, we are. We, prior to coming before council in 2024, this was a kind of research project that my director had put me on when I had first started with the city. And we also looked into what previous road maintenance groups were doing in that area. And that was the piece of equipment that was being used was a front plow and then a grader to pull in and open up the roads, you know, later on.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I was walking in West Fernie on the weekend with the dog and the streets are nice and wide down there. They've been certainly widened nicely. And sorry, I had one more question that occurred to me. No, it's gone. It may recur, but is there anything else from council? Councilor Ramirez.
Just a thought, Your Worship. I appreciate the back and forth conversations here, and I'm in support of this. Probably there's a little bit of work to be done in terms of presentation of these things because these are all like not straightforward. Like there are lots of different options. They need to be like really hashed out very well and communicated to the council. Honestly, I spent a lot of time reading this, but I couldn't understand. Maybe it's just because English is not my first language, maybe not, I don't know, but it just feels like for record and posterity purposes, these things should be like crystal clear when it comes to the council. Unless it's like a really complicated, complex social issue, like these kind of asset purchase decisions should be like straightforward. Maybe there is some opportunity for improvement in terms of presentation of these kind of issues to the council.
Yeah, I think that's potentially fair. And, you know, I'm not looking at Manager Salinger, of course. There was the nature of my question, of course. It would have been helpful to know that we looked at all the equipment options, what they might have been. And I'm not looking for 40-page reports, of course, but yeah, so we are confident that that analysis has been done. So I think it's a fair observation. I don't disagree, but not a criticism, Manager Salinger. Anything else from council? With that, I'll ask our corporate officer to read the recommendation.
Certainly, Your Worship. The recommendation is that council approve the purchase of a new single axle front plough truck for the price of $447,000. Sorry, $447,167.48 as previously approved in the 2024 financial plan.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Manager Salinger. Item 11.2, BC Hydro statutory right-of-way for the Fernie Childcare and Housing Project. A report from our Manager of Planning, Mr. Similini.
Thank you, Your Worship. Perfect. So just a really brief presentation tonight, Council, and then open for discussion and questions after that. The childcare and housing development project next to the Aquatic Center is requiring a statutory right-of-way for hydro service. The issue is that the Pine Avenue doesn't have hydro in it, and that would require the building or the new development to be serviced from the power line running along the back of the property between the Ridgemont Hill and the building itself. You can see here on the plan, it just shows a really sort of preliminary layout. And I apologize, it's kind of zoomed way out because it shows the entire property. Taking this with a grain of salt, this is the old layout, a parking lot layout that has since changed, but the red lines here shows the service coming from the power line along parallel with the property line through the Aquatic Center property. Then there's an underground vault here, and it connects out to the front of the building right there. And this is just a preliminary design. Once the blanket SRW is approved, or if it is approved, then BC Hydro can do a detailed design on that. So again, just the drawing there and the recommendation that council authorize public notice for this. Once it goes through public notice, then we can then sign off on the blanket SRW and it can be registered on title. At such a time, the detailed design can be completed and it will help the project to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Similini. Questions from council? Sorry, just looking at this map, and it hadn't occurred to me before, but the SRW or the current power line that goes along the back of the property at the base of the what we call the Ridgemont Slope, I guess. So the tie-in to the underground vault, is that an overhead line across there, Mr. Similini?
Your Worship, again, detailed design hasn't been completed, but from what I understand, the power line at the power line, the service line would dip, so go down underground from the line and then in. So you'd have an underground power line, from what I understand. But again, detailed design we'll have to sort that out. So one thing to note though with that is it isn't necessarily listed in the SRW. But in speaking with the developer, I mean, this is our property. We would try to get involved in that detailed design to make sure it's something that we're comfortable with.
Yeah, thank you. And the reason I asked, and it's maybe overthinking things. Well, two things. It is a childcare center, so we can reduce the overhead power lines. Great, and the dirt jumps are not that far from there. And I've watched those kids go off of them. You wouldn't want a bike tangled up in an overhead power line. But no, I appreciate the clarification. Thank you. Any other thoughts from council? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I did have a question, but I apologize. I wrote it down in another notebook. And I might get my wording a little bit muddled as a result, but I'm curious where the childcare center, I noticed in the covenant, they're granted that they're somewhere in there, but we need their signature to proceed with this. And I'm just curious why, if we are the landowners, we need them, like what that legal obligation is.
Yeah, Your Worship, through to Councillor Hamilton, I'm not 100% sure on that. If I had to make an educated comment, it would be that the power crosses both properties. So that as the leaseholder of them, that they're a signatory on that. It's also really worth noting too, and this may be related to that this line can be used for other development as well. So for example, if we are looking at the field house on the property, for example, there's potential to use this for that service as well. So I have been told by BC Hydro that the current servicing to the aquatic center is quite insufficient. So this does give that possibility as well.
Thank you. Other questions, comments from council? Seeing none, I'll ask Corporate Officer McElwee, if you don't mind reading the recommendation.
Of course, Your Worship. That council authorise public notice in accordance with section 26 of the Community Charter for the proposed disposition of an interest in land being the grant of statutory rights of way to BC Hydro and Power Authority for underground and utility purposes to be located on Lot 1, District Lot 4589 Kootenay, District Plan NEP 20274, 250 Pine Avenue, and Lot A, District Lot 4589, Kootenay, District Plan 18686, except Plan NEP 71387, 322 Pine Avenue, and that council authorise the mayor and corporate officer to execute all documentation to execute the disposition of the statutory rights of way following the requisite public notice.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Simulini. It's great to see this project continuing to move forward. Thanks to all the staff that have worked on it.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship.
Item 11.3, the Fernie District Historical Society lease modification, a report from our CAO, Mr. Bornowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mayor and Council, I have a very brief description of the report, and then I'll likely ask Director Logan to respond to questions while I handle the finalization of the lease agreement and bring the report to Council. Director Logan works with the Fernie District Historical Society and all our tenants on all our facilities, so it's probably best positioned to respond to most of your questions. But what I do want to bring forward is a proposed modification to the lease for the museum. The last lease with the Historical Society was executed in 2009. It is for a 25-year term, so it still runs till 2034. The proposed modifications are intended to improve clarity on responsibilities and reporting obligations for the Historical Society, and they reflect what staff believe are the public's interest in ensuring that the city has a very keen eye and direct control on the maintenance and repair of that facility to safeguard its future where we believe it's most appropriate for us to do so. Key changes, the leasee continues to be responsible for the maintenance, repair, and replacement of the leased area and improvements and fixtures, excluding the structural repairs. And they're still required to repair damage caused by themselves or their agents in the day-to-day business or the day-to-day public service operated out of there. The addition of the elevator and fire safety equipment, that clause is probably the most significant modification in this modification agreement. We're looking for the leasee to promptly notify us of any issues related to that elevator, and the responsibility for repairs are moving to the city. And they will be carried out by the city at our cost. We retain the right to access just to enable those repairs, and then some maintenance obligations are clarified. The rationale is that these are important aspects of that facility that are pretty core to its general function, regardless of who the tenant is. And it's our belief that we have the capability and the knowledge on our team to do the best job of maintaining that facility and safeguarding its maintenance for the interest of the community. With that, I'm open to questions or comments. And again, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bornowski. Questions from council? Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. My first question might not be obvious, but I'm going somewhere. Who's responsible for maintaining the stairway inside the building right now? Is it, if they are wearing and tearing the stairway and wearing it down, are they responsible for looking after, or are we?
Thanks for the question. A little bit of clarity. The interior stairs?
Correct.
in what regard as far as maintaining, keeping clear?
Well, there, for 25 years, people are going to be going up and down them. I presume there will be wear and tear and there will be require some sort of maintenance, perhaps resurfacing, those types of things. Who would be responsible?
So the way I understand it from reading the lease agreements is that the tenant would be responsible for the wear and tear items in the facility and have to replace them as required throughout the life of the agreement.
Fair enough. I feel like one of those lawyers that's asking questions they already know the answer to.
Next.
So my real question then is, assuming that the lease that's right, is responsible for the wear and tear of the stairs going up and down, why would we not want them to be responsible for the wear and tear of the elevator going up and down? It's essentially the same equipment performing the same function in the same building.
Fair question. The intention of this coming forward to council is to have a little bit more control over those assets within the facility that could cause an incident, which we have a historical example at the library that caused an incident or a situation where someone was hurt and the city was left responsible for that. Thank you. This adjustment to the lease agreement comes a little more in line with all of our tenants holistically, where the city has a bit more control over the specific things that we want to, like the life and safety and elevator maintenance, for example. So right now there's an existing contract that the museum pays Coney, the elevator maintenance contractors, and it's roughly $800 a year. What they've shared with me that's hard to absorb is these replacement parts. Most recently, an invoice for $3,200 to replace a gate valve. It probably only has to be replaced once in its life. You know, the museum rents the facility for a portion of the facility's life, potentially longer. We just want to have oversight to make sure that these types of repairs happen. With the elevator contract, specifically with the museum, I don't have oversight. I don't get phone calls from the techs about what's going on, what needs to be replaced, how it's doing, whereas I do at the library. So I have control over deciding what needs to be replaced, how long we can put it off. So this adjustment to the lease allows me to have a little more control over those items in the facility that I'm concerned about public safety with, the fire systems being also another one. This is one of the only facilities that we don't have oversight in that regard with. So it's a small nominal fee to make sure, or a nominal cost for fire extinguishers. It's like $135 a year to make sure they're all good at least once a year. And then the tenant's responsible every month to make sure that they're working properly and charged. Same thing with the fire alarm testing. We do that once a year just to make sure the fire alarm's functioning. If anything comes up throughout the year, with this new addendum to the lease agreement, we would be responsible to address those certain things. And I believe we are already with specifically the fire alarm system, electrical wiring. So the elevator is the biggest cost. And it's only because there is a bit of a history with elevators and causing, you know, incidents that in the end the city's responsible for. So we have a little more control and oversight over that.
Further?
Thank you, Worship. Yes. I certainly appreciate the desire to look after that space over there. I guess I would ask the question from a philosophical position. Did we consider, rather than assuming the financial responsibility for that we limit our legal responsibility for that? Is that something that was discussed as an option, which is the organization potentially be legally responsible for the care and maintenance of the elevator, and hence the responsibility for looking after someone if they get hurt, as opposed to the city assuming that, like, holding that current responsibility? Was that discussed, and was that an option?
Mr. Boranowski?
If I can, this is a discussion that we've had across a number of our leases. And fundamentally, at the end of the day, the city has the deepest pockets and will be named in any injury that happens. And so being able to take responsibility for a mechanical system is very different than taking responsibility for, say, a slip and fall on a slippery floor, or an icy sidewalk outside where we don't do the snow clearing. But this is a mechanical system inside a facility we own and then lease. And so if there is an injury, we're going to be at that table regardless, knowing that we have that control and influence, I think gives us an opportunity to make sure it's as safe as possible.
So
Thank you.
just if I could encapsulate what I've just heard. We are accepting responsibility for the elevator as a matter of risk mitigation, not in any way suggesting the museum isn't managing the elevator at all well up to today. It's just in terms of our own risk mitigation, we're going to take it on and ensure that it's managed appropriately.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from council? Seeing none, I will ask Ms. McElwee to read the recommendation.
Certainly, Your Worship. The staff recommendation is that council authorise the execution of the lease modification for the Fernie and District Historical Society as attached to this report.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Ramadas. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I was curious about council's response to item 14.1, the Canada Post under review through section 108 of the Canadian Labour Code, and the request therein that we forward a resolution essentially to ensure that it is a fulsome review and not a rushed review. And I'm curious if council has any comments on that request. Councillor Shoesmith.
I don't see what local government at this level has to do with the national post carrier and their union and their relationship with their workers. I think we should probably sit on our hands.
Councillor McIsaac. Thank you, Councillor Shoesmith. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Shoesmith. I don't think we should be weighing in on their relationship with the union. If the request was for the city to request input to the commission with the importance of ensuring that post-delivery remains in rural areas and how important it is to our small businesses and families and all that sort of thing, if that was the ask, I would wholeheartedly support that because I think that is important. And I think if I thought there was value in them in hearing it, I would ask for the right to say it. But that doesn't appear to be what they're asking for. And so as a consequence, I'm not sure if we have anything to add.
Yeah, I've given this a fair bit of thought and I tend to agree. If the ask, as you say, was the ongoing support of rural postal service across this nation, I think it is a kind of a unifying service for our country, but I appreciate that isn't the ask. So no, thank you for your input. Any other comments on correspondence? Oh, Councillor Hamilton.
I do have just one comment. I'm assuming this just arrived in our mailboxes within the last week or two. Looking at it, it requests that all submissions be received by Monday, the 20th, if I'm reading correctly. So we do need the postal service to be functioning properly.
Fair comment. With that, we will move on to reports from council members. And I will start with our youth councillor, Councillor Becker.
Hi, Council. I know it's been a while since I've been here. All I have to report really is that I went to the Victoria Youth Parliament. It was such an amazing experience. I met so many lovely people and definitely got to work on like my public speaking skills and my confidence in a room. There was 96 people my age, university students, adults, and it was like a fight to see who would talk first. So you really had to be all in or just sit and listen. And I think it was just a really valuable experience that I am so happy I got to have. And I've definitely been bragging to my friends, like I'm a parliament girl now, like, and I would recommend all kids like my age and that sort of thing to go and sign up for the BCYP because it's actually so amazing. And yeah, that's really all I have to report.
Thank you. Councilor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. Well, everybody talking over one another sounds just like our regular parliament. I don't have very much to report, Worship, other than my attendance at the Council Cafe last week. It was nice to be back and hear from a couple people who came by. And anybody's watching and you're thinking of questions, please come by. The soup is excellent.
Councilor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just wanted to give kudos to Fernie Nordic Society. There were a bunch of kids that participated in what was the race? The cross-country skiing race in Rossland. So me and my wife were fortunate enough to participate there as well. So one of our young athletes, she got third spot in a race of about 25 kids, I guess, and she's ranked like number 3 in the province. And a couple of other young athletes, they did exceptionally well. Again, Fernie kind of punched above its weight. Despite having a smaller program, they were able to outperform many of the other bigger communities. So it was wonderful to watch.
Thank you. Councilor Hamblin.
Thank you. I too attended the Council Cafe 2 weeks ago now, I guess, a week ago. Time flies when you're having fun. As well as a board meeting, library board meeting, about a week ago. One of the topics that was discussed there was their drive for recruiting new trustees. So if anybody is interested in sitting on that board as library trustee, definitely worth reaching out to the library and getting a little bit more information. It's a great way to give back to your community, learn about governance, all those sorts of fun things. And other than that, I don't think I have much else to report.
Thank you. Councilor Smith.
Good stuff. Skijoring's coming up. They're gonna be having their event here right away. They're looking for volunteers. If you haven't been, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and it's all the proceeds are for charity. In addition to that, I was speaking to Ted from the Fernie Alpine Ski Team, and they were telling me that there's an organization called Friends of Children. And if you need to travel for medical stuff, or if you have issues and the system kind of lets you down, they're there to help. I was previously unaware that that was a thing, and it's quite a good thing. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Not too much to report. I missed the Council Cafe, unfortunately. I was at the school again. That seems to be a regular gig for me these days. So it's kind of an interesting situation to be put into, but super fun. Don't get me wrong, super fun. So I encourage anybody to do that as well. On the weekend, I spent a lot of time up the ski hill, probably between 8:30 and 4:30 every day, helping out with the timber tour that you'll read about in the Free Press this week. And we had about 86 kids from Fernie Freestyle that were participating. And I'm the technical delegate, which means that I'm in charge of safety and insurance. So everybody was safe. So it was a great event. I was very relieved at the end of Sunday. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Audrey Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I sadly had to miss Council Cafe because they made me work. I did attend a tourism board meeting, and I just wanted to mention, as usual, they're always working on projects. They're like very busy promoting Fernie. There is a new video with 3 of our wonderful Fernie chefs and the lovely Sadie that's out. So I encourage people, if you get a chance, it was really great. They also have now the Ammonite model at the Vic, which is pretty cool. And they have been working on a long-term feasibility with a consultant looking at recreational needs in the area. I was going to bring up ponies and planks as well. And thanks, Councillor Shoesmith. Skijoring is really cool. It was a great event last year. So if you can volunteer, that would be great. And I also wanted to give a shout out. I mentioned it before council started, but I really wanted to give a shout out to Fernie's very own Tyler Palmer, who was on the bench with the Edmonton Oilers last night. And as the former minor hockey president, that he was on the team that brought home the Pee Wee banner to Fernie. It was really exciting to see him out there on the bench. So way to go, Tyler. We're all pretty excited for you. And yeah, that's it for me. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. And for me, I too attended a board meeting, the Fernie Trails Alliance board meeting on the 22nd of January. Lots of things happening at that organization, and they put up a really excellent work planning tool that I was quite taken with. And I'm going to bring it back and show it to folks. Not suggesting anybody needs to adopt it. And they're doing a program actually, and we've seen some friction in the community between trail users, particularly in the winter when the weather warms up. And they're going to provide a pilot for free snowshoes on the trails, and you can help yourself and return them when you're coming back to stop the degradation of the trails when things warm up. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. We also had our first 2025 Housing Solutions Working Group, January 23rd. I want to thank all the participants for their attendance, and I want to thank our own Director Lennox for his attendance and his updates on all the work that's being done in the planning department. It was incredibly well received at that meeting, and so thank you for that, Director Lennox. I also attended yesterday. I want to commend Ange Magliocco, who's the manager of the Northern Bar and Stage, who arranged a multi-stakeholder meeting to talk about the issue of drink spiking and customer safety. And it was an excellent agenda, well attended by industry reps and employees, the RCMP and ourselves. And it is an issue of concern in the community, and we're certainly all willing to work together to address it. I have the mess dinner for the 2757 Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry Fernie Royal Canadian Army Cadets tomorrow night in this building, which I'm very much looking forward to. Anyone who hasn't been to a mess dinner, take one in. It's a lot of fun. And finally, there is an Elk Valley OCP workshop focused on STRs this Friday here again in our senior center, hosted by the RDK, and focused largely on STRs in Area A, specifically the ski hill. So it'll be interesting to see the conversation at that meeting. So thank you for that. And first, I'd like to thank everybody who's attended this evening. But just to notify you, we are going to go in camera and ask our corporate officer to read the resolution, please, or the recommendation.
The staff recommendation is that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91K of the Community Charter, as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages, and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public.
The mover, Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. We will go into close and take a 5-minute recess. Thank you again for joining us.